Heartbeat bill. Lawmakers in Louisiana approve a measure to help the unborn. We have reaction from pro-life supporters. Message to Washington. The vice president heads to Canada. The country's prime minister rebukes him on pro-life measures. From Rome to Romania. A preview of the Holy Father's trip to a former communist country. And turning 90, a parish in Vatican City celebrates a milestone. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, May 30th, 2019. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Louisiana passes a heartbeat bill, and its Democratic governor, up for re-election, pledges to sign it. The law bans abortion as soon as an unborn baby's heartbeat is detected. Supporters hope to use this law to challenge Supreme Court precedent. Correspondent Jason Calvi joins us from outside that court. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. Justice Clarence Thomas says someday the Supreme Court's going to have to jump back into the abortion debate, and conservative states are teeing up that future fight. Louisiana joins a growing list of states in recent weeks passing abortion bans, including the heartbeat bill. The sponsor of the Louisiana bill says he hopes one day his abortion ban will make it here to the Supreme Court. Louisiana's House passes a heartbeat bill.
We join with thousands of Louisianans, millions of Americans, and state houses across the United States in bringing this message to America and the world. We choose to confront the culture of death.
The bill's sponsor is a Democrat. What's your goal with this bill?
Taking up the challenge, taking the fight to the abortion cartel, the abortion industry, and really taking the fight to the baby killers to say we are going to fight for the next generation. It's our ultimate goal to outlaw abortion, make it illegal.
About a dozen State House Democrats joined all Republicans to pass the bill. 23 voted no.
Who are you to tell women what they can and cannot do with their bodies?
The Democratic platform calls for getting rid of any restrictions on abortion.
This it seems like a constant assault on women's reproductive rights in many states is outrageous. It's horrific.
The question, what will abortion mean for 2020?
It's just particularly hard today to predict whether if abortion becomes a real wedge issue in 2020, whether it will help the Republican Party or the Democratic Party more.
Governor John Bel Edwards is up for re-election again this fall, and his promised signature will likely help his chances in the conservative state. He says being pro-life means more than being pro-birth, and he cites his record of increasing adoption out of the state's foster care. Lauren?
And his Catholic faith. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi. Thank you, Jason. New Hampshire abolishes the death penalty. State senators barely reached the two-thirds majority needed to override the veto of Republican Governor Chris Sununu. Catholic officials say they are pleased with the vote, and they say it gives a chance for, quote, more restorative responses to serious crimes. One day after special counsel Robert Mueller resigned and said he could not vindicate President Trump, Trump called him a never-Trumper and a rejected, conflicted job seeker. The president denounced Democrats' calls for his impeachment.
It's a dirty word, the word impeach. It's a dirty, filthy, disgusting word, and it had nothing to do with me.
The president spoke this morning before heading to Colorado to give a commencement address to the Air Force. These are the president's first on-camera remarks since Mueller addressed the media yesterday. The president claims Mueller's investigation into the 2016 election cleared him of obstruction of justice. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau questioned Vice President Mike Pence about abortion. Trudeau says he's concerned about anti-choice laws being passed in the U.S., and the vice president pushed back during his visit to Canada. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. Vice President Mike Pence and the Canadian Prime Minister discussed the new USMCA trade deal today, but the debate over abortion was also on the agenda. It all started with a comment Prime Minister Trudeau made yesterday before the Vice President even landed in Canada.
The Canadian Prime Minister told reporters,
I'm very concerned with the situation around the backsliding of women's rights that we're seeing from conservative movements here in Canada, in the United States, and around the world. I will have a broad conversation with the Vice President in which, of course, that'll come up. After that statement, the Prime Minister, an abortion advocate, and pro-life Vice President Mike Pence talked about the issue today in Ottawa.
I'm very proud to be part of a pro-life administration, and our administration has taken steps to stand for the sanctity of life at home and abroad.
I highlighted to the Vice President that there was a significant amount of concern amongst Canadians on the new anti-choice laws being passed in a number of American states.
The debate over abortion has gained momentum in the U.S. This month, Alabama banned abortion even in cases of rape or incest. It drew this response from President Trump. He wrote, "I am strongly pro-life with the 3 exceptions: rape, incest, and protecting the life of the mother." I asked Counselor to the President Kellyanne Conway, a Catholic, if she and others share the President's support of abortion exceptions. With those exceptions, is that your view? Is that the Vice President's view? And does it represent the administration's view as a whole?
I'll let you know when I run for president.
Hey, Kellyanne.
His position, he's a pro-life president, and he said, let's get together and unite for life in 2020.
Canada currently has few restrictions on abortion. The taking of unborn life is simply considered a medical procedure. Still, statistics show it's more rare per capita in Canada than the U.S. Lauren?
White House correspondent Mark Irons. Thank you, Mark. Now in Mexico, a bus carrying pilgrims from the world's most popular Catholic shrine crashed and caught on fire. Authorities say more than a dozen are dead, dozens more were injured. And correspondent Wyatt Goolsby joins me here in the studio with the details. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. The crash has shocked Catholics in Mexico. The pilgrims were returning from Our Lady of Guadalupe Shrine, the basilica in Mexico City devoted to the country's patron saint. But before they could return to their homes, their vehicle was hit by a semi-truck.
What Screams of terror in Mexico yesterday as onlookers recorded video of the aftermath of the deadly crash. Authorities quickly raced to the scene after the bus collided with a semi-truck. Emergency officials believe one of the vehicles lost its brakes going downhill and crashed into the other, causing both to erupt in flames. At least 21 died, 30 others were injured. Police in Mexico say the crash took place in a region called Maltrata. The pilgrims were returning to their archdiocese in Tuxtla Gutierrez after visiting Mexico City's Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Every year, millions come to pray at the basilica, some on their hands and knees, a way of thanking the Blessed Mother for answered prayers. According to tradition, Mary appeared to the indigenous peasant Juan Diego in 1531. She requested that a shrine be built in her honor, and as a sign to the people, Our Lady imprinted her image on his cloak.
Our Lady of Guadalupe is now venerated around the world. The Archdiocese of Tuxtla Gutierrez, the pilgrims' home diocese, sends its condolences to the victims' loved ones, saying, quote, "We deeply regret the deaths caused by this accident and share in their families' overwhelming pain." And Lauren, there are still more than a dozen victims who are in the hospital as well.
Oh, I just can't imagine going on a pilgrimage and having something like this happen. Just horrible. Wyatt, thank you for the update. The founder and head of an organization in Poland dedicated to helping victims of abuse by priests has resigned. Marek Lesinski faces allegations of extorting money from a survivor. He's also accused of demanding payments from the producers of a documentary about clerical abuse. The Have No Fear Foundation says it's investigating the claims. Pope Francis has strong words for the former president of Brazil, who currently is in prison. He's serving an 8-year sentence for money laundering and other corruption charges. In a letter, the Holy Father encouraged the former leader, known as Lula, to trust in Jesus Christ and respect human life and freedom. The letter was in response to one that Lula had written to the Vatican, offering an assessment of the political situation in Brazil. For more on this story, including a look at the former president's tenure leading the Catholic country, visit our partners at CatholicNewsAgency.com. And the Holy Father is preparing for a 3-day trip to Romania beginning tomorrow. The Romanian and Vatican flags are flying underneath the Arch of Triumph in Bucharest. One priest says he hopes the visit will encourage cooperation between the Orthodox and Catholic churches. The country is roughly 82% Romanian Orthodox. EWTN Rome Bureau Chief Alan Holdren has more on this trip and the country's papal history.
3 days, 4 stops. It'll be one of the most logistically complex papal trips, but also a chance for the Holy Father to continue his ecumenical outreach with a country that was under communism until 1989.
La Romania era un paese chiuso.
As of 2011, there were more than 870,000 Catholics in Romania, making up just over 4% of the population. The Catholic Church is the second largest Christian denomination after the Romanian Orthodox Church. On Sunday, Pope Francis will beatify 7 Greek Catholic martyred bishops in the city of Blaj, nicknamed the Little Rome. In fact, a statue of the Wolf of the Eternal City welcomes visitors to the heart of the Romanian Greek Catholic Church. The soon-to-be beatified bishop martyrs were killed by the communist regime in the mid-20th century.
The communist experience was a traumatic experience for Romanian Christianity, for Orthodox Christianity here, but we have a lot of examples of the people that were in prison and were of different confessions of faith, but still they confessed Christ till death. And it is very important that the Pope remembers our sufferings.
Blaj is also home to the second ever Bible translated into the Romanian language. Written in the Cyrillic alphabet, it was recovered after the fall of the communist regime. The Holy Father's visit to the country comes 20 years since Pope John Paul II became the first pope to visit Romania in 1999. In Rome, Alan Holdren, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, an update on what's believed to be the world's smallest baby. And an ordination story in Poland unlike any you may have seen. Disappointment and heartache. Those are the words pro-life advocates in Illinois are using to describe their reaction to the passage of a pro-abortion bill in the state's House of Representatives. The Reproductive Health Act would lessen restrictions on abortions later in pregnancy, remove criminal penalties for physicians that perform abortion, and expand insurance coverage for procedures and contraception. Joining me now by Skype is Bishop Thomas John Paprocki of the Diocese of Springfield in Illinois. Your Excellency, welcome back to our broadcast.
Hello, good to be with you.
You have called the passage of this Reproductive Health Act a gravely immoral action and evil. The Catholic Conference of Illinois issued a statement saying that it sends a message to everyone in our state that life is cheap. You and your brother bishops, what's your message? What are you going to do? How are you going to urge the Illinois Senate to reject this?
Well, I think we have to be clear that this kind of legislation is gravely immoral, and we have to keep saying that. You know, the Second Vatican Council, in the document on the Pastoral Constitution on the Church in the Modern World, Gaudium et Spes, called abortion and infanticide abominable crimes. And Pope Francis himself has called abortion a very grave crime. And so we have people that are basically pushing for something that's criminal from a moral point of view. So the House of Representatives in Illinois, unfortunately, earlier this week did pass that bill, Senate Bill 25, the so-called Reproductive Health Act. It had passed out of the Senate committee today, and probably will be taken up for a vote either this evening or tomorrow. The Senate adjourns tomorrow, so they're probably going to do something by tomorrow. And unfortunately, it looks like something will pass, and the governor has already said he wants to make abortion. He wants to make Illinois the most abortion-friendly state in the union. So he's definitely going to sign this.
Do you think that Illinois will then move in the direction of New York State, where abortion is allowed till the moment of birth?
Well, yes, I think this legislation already does that. It removes any protection for fetal life, and it basically says that you can have an abortion right up until the moment of birth. And so it says that there are no rights enjoyed by an unborn baby. And so I think it is very, very extreme in that regard. Even in Roe versus Wade, which supposedly this is supposed to help reinforce, Roe versus Wade talks about viability. And this legislation just throws viability out the window, too. Even a viable baby can be legally aborted under this bill.
It was an emotional debate on the floor in tears. A state representative, Avery Bourne, a Republican who was pregnant, called the measure a massive expansion that will impact viable babies. A Democrat, Kelly Cassidy, said, "This war on women is coming to Illinois. I say not on my watch." What do you make of the timing of all of this? Do you think that the passage of pro-life legislation in Alabama and other states played a role?
Well, that's what I'm hearing, that supposedly the push for this Reproductive Health Act in Illinois is a reaction to the passage of the bills in Georgia. Now, actually, that's false. You know, just said that the devil is the father of lies, and there are a lot of lies that are being told about this whole situation. So there was a bill that was passed 2 years ago and signed into law by the then Republican governor, who did not win for re-election. But basically, that bill not only provided for taxpayer funding of abortion, but also said that if Roe versus Wade is ever overturned, that abortion would remain legal in Illinois. So they already took measures in response to anticipating that Roe versus Wade may be overruled. So this new legislation this year goes far beyond that, and actually is not even needed according to those stated ambitions or intentions that they have on their part.
Well, we'll check in tomorrow to see what happens. Bishop Thomas John Paprocki of the Diocese of Springfield in Illinois, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
A tiny, tiny baby was born in San Diego, and yesterday her parents brought her home from the hospital. How tiny, you ask? Sabi was born in December, weighing just 8 ounces. She's believed to be the world's smallest surviving baby. Her mother gave birth after 23 weeks. She spent nearly half of the year in neonatal intensive care. Look how cute, and now she weighs 5 pounds. Yesterday, for the first time, she went home. One nurse says that baby Sabi is a miracle. Absolutely true. May is ordination month in many dioceses around the world, but one ordination in Poland caught our eye. It was far from typical. A Polish man says thank you. Last Friday, Mikhail Los was ordained a priest in his Warsaw hospital bed. He was diagnosed with cancer a month ago and is now in critical condition. In a rare move, Pope Francis granted a dispensation allowing him to be ordained both a deacon and a priest in the same Mass. He was surrounded by his parents, his sister, and other Polish members of the Orianine Fathers congregation. The day before his ordination, Los made perpetual vows in his religious community. Photos were shared on Facebook by Biloxi Vocations. In another video on the Sons of Divine Providence Polish Facebook page, Father Los thanked Catholics who prayed for him, asking for more prayers and offering a blessing with the sign of the cross. What a great story. Up next on the broadcast, a new book examines the restoration of the oldest wooden crucifix at St Peters Basilica. The California Senate joins the House in passing a bill that would force priests to violate the seal of confession in some cases. Los Angeles Archbishop Jose Gomez says it's a mortal threat to the religious freedom of every Catholic, and he writes that the privacy of that intimate conversation, our ability to speak with total honesty from our lips to God's ear, is absolutely vital to our relationship with God. And joining me now by Skype from Los Angeles, she is the Archdiocese Senior Director of Government Relations. Thank you so much for joining us, Kathleen.
Thank you, Lauren.
Let's talk about what this means for priests. How is this going to be enforced? What are the implications of this?
I think it's important to know, first off, that our priests are very clear. They hold the inviolable seal of confession sacrosanct, and no one is prepared to offer anything from that to break that seal. Second, this bill has some flaws in it, and one of those is setting up a really impossible way to enforce it because we don't know who comes to confession, and that's part of the problem we have with it.
Well, the Catholic Conference in California calls this a bill that will help no one, yet has the potential to hurt everyone. I've read of teens who say, I don't want to come to confession if that's the case, and a priest who says, hey, I'll go to jail before I break this. So why does it have the support that it does by politicians?
Politicians hope this bill will increase protections for children to avoid child abuse. And we support that absolutely. We believe that we can do both, protect children and protect our right to have sacred confession.
You know, the bill is passed by the Senate. protects the seal except in cases like you, where you work for the diocese or archdiocese, or when a priest is hearing another priest's confession. So do you see this as really just a reactive measure following the clergy sex abuse crisis, or is there something more here that we're missing?
I think we have to be honest that there is a lot in the culture that seems to think that Catholics are trying to cover up all of this information. We know that's not true. We know that we have been very forthcoming with information. At the same time, we understand that. And it's important to know that this right to privacy for the sacrament of confession that SB 360 as amended provides has this exception, and it sets up a real problem with the bill where we have two groups of people. The people whose confessions are protected, and then those like myself, as you mentioned, are not protected.
What are you hearing from priests and from the flock about this legislation? It must be all the buzz there in LA.
Priests are adamant they will fight this bill and they will not comply if it becomes law in California. They hold the sacrament of confession to be absolutely sacred, as do we all. And our priests, God bless them, are wonderful. And they say they are willing to go to jail if necessary.
Right. That's crazy. And well, I mean, it's great. Archbishop Gomez said he believes there's a way to strengthen mandated reporting laws and then preserve the sanctity of penitential communication. So how would that plan work?
Absolutely. We are already mandated reporters as priests, as teachers, sometimes secretaries, nurses. All of our parishes and schools and hospitals have mandated reporters at every campus all the time. And we believe that there are plenty of opportunities for us to enact all of the regulations that we have in place. Hundreds of thousands of adults on our parish campuses have already gone through training to know what to do and how to report. And we stick very strongly with those regulations. And we believe that that will help us protect children far more than anything that would require us to break our sacraments.
Right. Well, we're going to see what happens from there. It's passed in the House and the Senate. I bet we'll be back to you when the final results come in. Thank you so much, Kathleen Domingo, Senior Director of Government Relations in the Office of Life, Justice, and Peace for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. The Vatican releases a book about the restoration of the oldest wooden crucifix in St Peters Basilica. It dates from the 14th century. The repairs were finished in 2016 and were funded by the Knights of Columbus.
The Knights of Columbus have been very generous to the Holy See, and they saw the immense importance of having these ancient portraits of the Lord Jesus available to the people, especially to young people.
Now, Cardinal James Francis Stafford appeared at a news conference with Barbara Jatta, head of the Vatican Museums. The cross weighs nearly 160 pounds. The restoration took more than a year, and the Knights of Columbus also sponsors EWTN News Nightly. Finally, tonight, a church inside the Vatican is celebrating 90 years. Pope Pius XI founded the parish of Santa Anna, or St. Anne's, on this day in 1929 after the Vatican city-state was formed. The church was built hundreds of years earlier. Now, Pope Francis sent a special blessing today to the church's priest, and I had the opportunity to be in that church when I was in Rome earlier. Just stunning, stunningly beautiful. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Let's keep in touch online. Follow me at Lauren Ashburn on Twitter and Lauren Ashburn EWTN on Facebook. Good night, and God bless you.